Councilmember Farías to give an opening statement on her legislation being heard today.
Thank you, Chair Brooks Powers, and sorry to see you go, Sam, but we're excited for your new endeavor. Good morning, everyone. I'm Councilmember Amanda Farías, and I'm proud to be attending today's hearing to discuss TLC's regulated industries and to hear my bill, Intro 1139, which would allow for interior advertising for for-hire vehicles. This new advertising opportunity, which is not a new idea to the city, would provide rideshare drivers with an opportunity to earn a passive income from advertisements that could allow for more money to stay in their pockets and in the families of our hardworking drivers. This bill puts New York City rideshare drivers first. The ability for drivers, specifically that service our outer borough communities, to have advertisements in their cars comes at an urgent moment. With more fees incoming to our drivers in communities like mine due to rising gas prices, calls to electrify, congestion pricing, and the upcoming Green Rides initiative. The revenue sharing model outlined within this bill will allow drivers to truly reap the benefits of an ad revenue, as they will earn a percentage of every ad that plays on the tablets with little to no extra work for them during their shifts. It has also been shown that when consumers are presented with a visible reminder to tip their driver on an in-car infotainment screens, drivers see a 13% increase in the tips received. As the chair of the Committee on Economic Development and the council member for a huge portion of our rideshare drivers, I am proud to be pushing for this bill that supports our workers and their economic mobility. Thank you, Chair Brooks Powers, for your leadership on hearing this bill today.
Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge that we've been joined by Council Members Lee and Kagan.
So if ads are allowed in FHVs, passengers may be shown and drivers may hear ads for anything from Broadway musicals to strip clubs. Perhaps these concerns could be overcome if drivers stood to earn significantly more money by allowing ads, but TLC has yet to see any such evidence. On the taxi side, most advertisers enter into agreements with fleets and drivers do not share in the revenues. We expect a similar business model to emerge in FHVs, which may explain why it is the large advertising and FHV companies that seem most interested in allowing interior advertising. We have heard countless claims that interior advertising will result in increased driver earnings, but we have yet to see proof that such an increase would materialize in any meaningful way and would be guaranteed to drivers in the long term, rather than the companies just offering attractive upfront incentives to get drivers in the door and then reducing those incentives over time, as we've seen in the for-hire industry before. I will also note that the council established Black Car and Livery Task Force recommended as recently as 2021 that TLC maintain existing restrictions on interior advertising. Citing many of the reasons I just discussed, the task force stated that allowing such ads would be detrimental to their business and would not accrue any benefit to drivers. We understand and appreciate the council's intent with Intro 1139, but we agree with the task force and do not believe driver earnings are best addressed by putting more ads into more spaces. Turning to 1079.
As a regulator, as an elected member of the City Council, it's our duty to propose legislation that responds to the needs of our constituency. And specifically in my district, I represent many drivers who have expressed feelings of pinch by the slew of fees required by drivers to operate in New York City. This bill, I'm hoping, can alleviate some of that burden by providing them an opportunity to earn passive income. And I'm certain that the agency has oversight over the app-based services, as we've seen and heard, even just by the pilot examples that you've given. And the TLC can ensure that there are rules in place that are mutually beneficial to both the driver and the rider. So just have a couple questions. I understand some of the concern with the advertising in vehicle for the outer borough drivers. I guess my question is, and maybe it's silly, but why do we keep advertising in the yellow and green taxis if there is so burdensome for customers and annoying, et cetera, et cetera?
Thank you for that question. I'm both happy and displeased to report that we have been attempting to reduce advertising prevalence in the back of taxis for years.
Okay.
Advertisements were first introduced into the back of taxis during the introduction of what was then called the Taxi Passenger Enhancement Program, or the credit card readers in the back of taxis. These devices also generated trip data for the TLC automatically, and this is required equipment in taxis. And to offset the cost of these, the required equipment, the TLC at the time allowed for the equipment providers to show ads in the back as a means of deferring the costs of the required equipment for fleets and drivers alike. We have enacted several pilot programs in the past to pilot screenless, what they're now called tech systems in the back of taxis. We have rearranged our rules to reduce the time and ads that are the time ads can be shown on to require a default off, a default mute in there. But the general theme of the regulation surrounding this has been to reduce the prevalence of ads in taxis to the extent possible.
Do we have data on how many people click mute or turn it off? Like, is that an ability? Like, do we have that ability?
It might be data we can acquire from the providers. It's not part of the regular trip records that they give to us. But I'm certainly happy to reach out to the two main tech system providers, Curb and CMT, to see what data they have on passengers clicking mute.
Sure. And I mean, I guess my general interest is like with codification of many laws, like we can do a lot of different things. And so I'm wondering from you or from you folks, if you can speak on why do you think we won't be able to regulate this in a way that could work for hire vehicle drivers?
Thank you for the question. I think it's important to sort of parse what we would be regulating. There's the physical equipment in the back of the taxis, the screen itself, the dimensions, how it's secured. We certainly are able to regulate around that. Regulating the conditions of vehicles is one of the agency's primary responsibilities. Where it gets a bit tricky is regulating the content on those screens. We're the TLC, we're a city agency, we're a part of the government, and the government's ability to restrict speech is generally very limited.
Right.
We've had federal litigation around this in the past, and I know it's a different context, but the MTA has also had a series of litigation around their ability to regulate what ads are in the subways. We're the government, we can't restrict speech is, I think, the most basic way I think I could say it right now.
But I think in essence, right, like a corporation like Uber or Lyft could choose what content they display or not. It's like how, Elon Musk can do whatever he wants on Twitter.
Certainly, yes. So we see this on the Uber and Lyft apps today. These aren't screens that are affixed to the backs of taxis, but if you open up your Uber or Lyft app, you'll be shown ads for a multitude of things. But this is not a device that's attached to the taxi. It's not something that's auto-playing when a passenger gets in. So it's not something the TLC certainly exerts authority over. Similarly, for our advertisers in the back of taxis today, CMT and Curb, I understand, have contracts with different advertising providers to decide what gets displayed in there.
Makes sense. Thank you for that. And I guess one of the other added benefits that I've seen for this is, in my district particularly, for example, technology is very sparse for constituency to get notices from the city, from the mayor, even from myself. Like, I can't walk down a street where there's a Link kiosk, but when I do hail a yellow taxi, I do get to see different notices from the city, different messages from our different commissioners. And so do you think it's appropriate that outer borough customers don't actually have the same level of resources or invitations or notices from the city as they're trying to take a ride in comparison to what we have here in the Central Business District or the island of Manhattan?
Thank you for the question. I do think it's absolutely important that all residents of New York City receive important updates. On the taxi side, we have requirements that set aside a set amount of time for PSAs provided by the agency that if the device does display advertisements, they must also display city-provided content. Certainly any advertising in the back of FHVs, we'd like to see that city-provided content as well. But I believe there's other mechanisms we can get our messages out other than bombarding passengers with ads. We have a very active set of social media accounts that are constantly pushing out our messages. We have our Van Halen. We've got a wonderful mobile outreach team that is outside right now, passing out every piece of literature you could imagine to any driver who's interested. So we're always interested in ways that we can better communicate with our licensees, with our passengers. We're just not sure that the introduction of ads is going to be the best place to put those notifications. Oftentimes, they're drowned out by the ads themselves. Passengers will see the ad and click the off button anyway, so it's not the most effective means for getting TLC information out to our passengers.
Okay, thank you. And just please keep me posted on if we can figure out if we have that data. And I will say,
Good morning, Madam Chair and the members of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. My name is Patricia Gatling, and I'm appearing here today on behalf of the International Association of Transportation Regulators, IATR, to provide information relevant to intro number 1139, which would allow for-hire vehicles to display advertising on an electronic tablet inside their vehicle. I'm the former New York City Human Rights Commissioner, and I've been an IATR member for many years, having served as a speaker and report peer reviewer with an expertise in transportation equity, civil rights, and labor-related issues. Our IAT board chair, Carlton Thomas, and our president, Matt Dowse, were unable to be here today, and they've asked me to testify as I was involved with the subject matter. The IATR, for your information, is a 36-year-old nonprofit educational association comprised mostly of global transportation leaders, not only in ground transportation, but in airports and micro-mobilities and sort of the vast industry. And one of the activities that we conduct, of course, is research and reporting on that research. Recently, in 2021, our most recent report on model regulations for interior and exterior digital advertising for taxi cabs and transportation network company vehicles, we addressed this very issue. And we've attached that report to our testimony for your review. And at any time, I'm available to speak with you all individually about the report and its findings. Now, we're not here to support or not support the bill, but we are here to tell you that the bill is consistent with our research and our findings and the global best practices and standards for the industry. We'd also note the concerns of the council being the safety and of the devices and the vehicles can easily be addressed and have been addressed in the past. And we'd also talk about just one issue, the source of revenue. We believe that it would be a generous source of revenue for industry drivers, and it's done globally. Thank you.